Hey guys, I'm Kevin Potter, and I'm going to show you how to make the other half of this earring. I just made this a few minutes ago. It's not like some amazing work of art, but it uses impression dies and shot dies, and it involves soldering, and so I figured it'd be a good first project, and how to put it back on an open die. So the first thing we're going to do, we have our silver and we have our dye and our urethane. So we'll run next door. Eventually I'll have a press over here that we can use. But first we're going to run next door real quick, press it, and then I'll get busy soldering it and show you how to do it. Okay guys, so what this is 20 gauge fully dead soft silver, sterling, and a dye. And this is about the amount of urethane you'd want to use. This is totally doable in a 20-ton press. I don't have one set up for myself yet, so we're going to use this one. So you'll set your urethane on top, and also if you make your cutout small, just the size you need, it'll flow into the mold better. So here we go. I've got this set at about 20 tons. So there's our stamping. Okay, so the next step is to saw this out. We could just use a shear and chop around to the edges, but we're going to saw it for now. And I'm going to leave a little tab at the top so I have a place to put my jump ring. I'm leaving a little bit of an edge so that I have room for my plate. I'm going to put a plate on it. Okay. Here's the plate. It's roughed out. File. Screw it up a little bit. Good. Then we're going to take another piece of silver. And this is going to be our back. So I'm going to put it up against one side just so I don't have to cut so much. And I'm going to use my solder pick just to give me some lines to go by. Barely see them. Cut it out. Once again, we're using 20 gauge. Next step, this will get soldered directly to this. But first, you got to get the gap out of there, because even the best of us cannot solder through a canyon. So I'm going to flatten this out a little bit. This would be a perfect time to use my bench anvil. Not this thing, but I don't own one. What I'm doing is I'm filing the back flat so that my solder has a place to adhere to. And I'm also going to take a little sanding disc here and just go over this so that there's absolutely no reason my solder won't stick. Not too bad. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to drill a little hole in it in the back. Okay. Next, I'm going to use hard solder for this. And by leaving this little tail up here, it gives me a place to hold my part. Because if you lay this flat on your bench or on your soldering board, you're not going to be able to solder this. You're going to melt it. You want it suspended. I'm going tear off maybe 4 pieces. Fire up the torch. I like to solder without the lights on. Not dark, but you got to be able to see the temperature of your metal. Shift it a little bit. But that's why you leave it kind of large. That way it's got room to shift. The solder is going to turn clear, or the flux will turn clear when it's ready. Most of it's done. Try not to set myself on fire. Yep, looks like it took 4 pieces. There it is. Let the red go out of it before you drop it in the pickle. Try not to drop it on your bench and light your bench on fire. I did that earlier. Ooh, I'm gonna get it. All right. Rinse it off, and it's gonna get pickle inside of it because of the hole. But you will live. There we go. Okay. That's pretty decent. If you have a belt sander, now's the time to use it. This is almost like a wood file, but silver is pretty soft and it cuts easy. I use this for really getting a lot of the metal off. And then then I go after it with a finer file. This will just take off a bulk of it really quick. And it doesn't involve me pushing the file. When your disc wears out, be sure and get another one. Discs are cheap. Time is valuable. I'll do the details with a file, but I'm going to remove a bulk of this with a sanding disc. So I'm using a finer file right now to kind of get the last of it done. And we're going to put a hole in the back, or right in the top there. Before I put the hole in it, I'm going to start the hole with a little burr. I'm going to find a little ball burr. You know how you never find the burr you want? Oh, look at that. There's the perfect one. Okay. We're going to put a little divot in the top. Get your RPM up real high when you're using a small burr. That way, when I go to use my little drill, drill bit doesn't want it. Get your RPMs up real high on a little drill bit. Now we will deburr that hole. So the next step, we're going to use the shot die, which is this one, so that we can make this little tiny concho thing at the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up the little pieces of silver that I chopped off of this. And you don't want to use too big of a ball, because it'll be a problem. These are pretty sweet. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but Starrett made them, and they are like the most awesome flush cutters in the world. You can just take massive cuts. Perfect. I'm going to actually pickle this little blob so that it doesn't come out black. Nice and shiny. Okay. Now, this is about the size of a blob you would want for a die about like this. If you put too big of a blob, it's going to be too thick. This is a nice size. If you have a press, you should use it. If you don't, you could use a hammer. But a lot of times people think, I'm going to hit it, just take a hammer and wail on that. It's not going to do anything. Use a punch and hit the punch. It's a lot easier. You'll have more control. But we're in the press business. We use presses. So let's go use a press. Okay, here we are in front of the press. Like I said, I'm going to use one of my presses eventually. Perfect. Not too thick. And it's shiny. Okay, next thing we're going to do, we're going to solder the ear post onto this thing. Now a lot of people might try to take all that off of it before soldering the ear post on. But then you're going to have trouble holding it when you try to put the ear post on. So I am once again going to use my sanding disc to take off any sort of impurity on the back of it. And I'm going to do the same with my ear post. There we go. Now, I'm going to take this and use that flashing to hold it. I'm going to hit it with some flux. And this I'm going to hold in a pair of tweezers. The maneuver is this. I'm going to put a little bit of solder on there on this piece. Then I'm going to come in and just go punk. And we're going to use high solder. We're going to use high temp because we're not sissies. Get that get it nice and warm so that the flux is sticky and it doesn't bubble off. Pick your solder, set it in the middle. Boom. Come in with your solder warmed up. I bring my piece in just barely. Done. And whenever you're soldering, sometimes if you move it too quickly, obviously, your piece will jiggle around on there. So now, we have this nifty handle from which to hold on to it from, and I'm going to come after it with my cutters. You could use a saw or a sanding disc, but today we're using side cutters. Not too off center. So we're going to make sure our post is straight. I like to use my flat nose pliers. And the next step, we are going to put a jump ring on it. And if you can believe it, I have one here. So the next step, it's a two-step process. Do not attempt to put this on here, solder that to that, all at once. You will not be successful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that with that, and I'm going to put my jump ring to the back. I'm going to solder this to that. I'm going to put that under it, sort of like a half-ass heat sink. Not that it'll probably have any effect. This is where we break out the easy solder. And we'll hit it with a little flux. It's very important to use flux. Alright, now we come in with our tweezers here. This is where you can totally ruin your day. You got to kind of prepare. I want the back of my opening to be on that side. So I'm going to kind of work it out beforehand. That's going to go right there like that. Okay, got my little ball of solder up there. And what you're gonna do, come in with a little bit of flux on there and this up. I want to bring my jump ring in close so that it's warm when that solder goes, but not so close that it melts the jump ring. Yep, there it is. Let's see if I did a good job. So what we've got here is a jump ring that's open, see the little opening, soldered to this. Next step, this is where we hook this through here. So this gets a little tricky. So you're gonna hold this piece, and then we're going to get that in position, and I'm going to use this pair of tweezers like a heat sink right at the solder joint, but you don't want it to bind either because it'll actually come off. You're going to use a very small amount of solder. That's why I like to use these pliers to tear it off. So I got a little tiny piece. Perhaps a little big, but it should be okay. Turn out my lights. Now for this, we need careful flux application. We'll put a little flux right at the top. And I'm not gonna heat down on it like that because you'll burn stuff up. So we're gonna come at it like that. I'm going to shrink my flame. Going to find my little piece of solder. We're going to preheat our jump ring. There it is. Done. And dunk them in the water. These are going to look fantastic on me. I just know it. Gonna be great. Okay, so the jump ring has been soldered, and the next thing I like to do, well, there we go, they dangle. See, they match because we use the same die. The next thing, I didn't put a super high polish on these because I like to throw them in liver of sulfur. And what I do is, rather than have a big pot of liver of sulfur, I go to my microwave and I heat up a little bit of water, and then I put a little bit of this stuff in there, the drops. It works pretty good, the gel. So I put that in there, and then I don't have to store the stuff. Let's take a look. Trusty assistant, see if they're black yet. Stir it around. Plunge it in the water. And so for those of you who don't have a polishing machine or a buffer, I tend to use just a little bit of this paste and a paper towel. So we got a good pair of earrings. They need a little more finishing, but thank you for watching.